Hi, I'm Ed Thorne, Town Administrator in Pembroke, and welcome to Pembroke Today. And today my guests are Tony Marino with the Building Department in Pembroke and Lisa Cullity, Pembroke Health Agent. Today's topic is going to be the creation of what we just got in the spring of the Department of Municipal Inspections. So gang, what were the origins of the Department of Municipal Inspections?
I started in Pembroke back in 2007, and I've had some experience with the Department of Municipal Inspections with my time in Hanover. And I can tell you we've created a lot of efficiencies there, cross-training of the staff members, online permitting. We just saw all the departments working together made it not only better for the residents, but the business owners in town. So we thought that bringing that concept to Pembroke, and seeing it work in not only Hanover, but other towns, that, it would be a great idea for Pembroke to move forward with that.
Lisa?
Sure. Having lived in town as long as I have, and then of course been involved with the Board of Health before I was the agent, it was very obvious to me that Pembroke was behind the times and that we needed to do something. It's difficult to operate a town our size with the staffing levels we have, and I hear the voters clearly about not wanting to spend more money. But if you have more people and you don't have more staff, in order to meet those needs, you have to do something. And one efficiency model that can be taken from private business, and that we quite frankly stole from Hanover, was to cross-train staff. If you can have the same staff performing multiple functions, you create natural efficiencies. And for me with the Board of Health, the big problem was after we lost a staff member, and trying to maintain that continuity of service to the residents was very difficult. In working with the building department, we've been able to restore a lot of that, and of course I hope with municipal inspections we can even do better.
I know personally it started with me when we lost an employee to the town of Cohasset.
Yeah.
And when Chrissy came and would call back to me and say, "You wouldn't believe what we're doing over here," and I literally called up the town manager, Chris Sr., took a visit over there. Chris showed me around, and basically came back, and I sat down with you, Tony,
Yep.
and said, "Okay, I just saw something over in Cohasset," and then he goes, "By the way, we have it in Hanover," and that started the ball rolling, and we decided that we were going to pursue it. Now, okay, so we got the concept about a year ago, and we were determined we were going to go forward. What were the next steps that we decided to take to make it easier for the town meeting in the spring of 2017 to embrace this whole thing? What was the first steps that we took?
Well, the first step was drafting the language to change the bylaw, to accept the special act for the state, and to create the Department of Municipal Inspections. One thing we did a little different here is I think we excluded the planning board and the town planner, because Pembroke doesn't have one right now, so I think that made it a little easier. So ours consists of just the building department, health, and the conservation department. And then it was just really getting the Board of Selectmen on board, which was what you did, and getting town meeting on board. But honestly, I think when we got to town meeting, it sort of sold itself.
Well, I think another step that we haven't shared with the folks out there is that we decided that we would approach the local government study committee.
Okay.
We wanted them to be aware of it, because they've been working on revising town government.
A lot of parts of it, yeah.
And so, we went to them, I went to Tim Brennan, a member of our advisory committee that's on that, and we kind of presented that to them and let them run with it for a while. And I know, Tony,
I attended several of their meetings.
Went to their meetings.
I went to several as well.
Right, and Lisa, and so we got them to buy into it, so that basically it wasn't like a power play from up to down. That it was more.
They did a lot of legwork. They did a lot of research in other communities. I know that at least 2 of them went to Hanover to look at that model, and I believe 1 or 2 of the other members also researched Cohasset and some other towns. I think it was important to the government study committee to know that if they were going to present this article, to feel like they did their homework and saw the model working well elsewhere. And basically, once they saw that, they talked to Tony and I think, to quote one of those members, the choice was rather obvious.
Yeah.
I know the Hanover model that we did, that we were talking about the fact that Cohasset has the town manager form of government. It was a lot easier for Chris to do his thing there. And the fact that Hanover, when they first adopted this bylaw, they had the town
Town
administrator.
administrator form of government, yes.
Right, and then
Yep.
and then when Steve was still there,
Yeah.
and then they adopted that bylaw to create the Department of Municipal Inspections.
Correct.
And then when Hanover went to the town manager form of government, all they did was kind of cross out town administrator and put in town manager. kind of
Correct.
thing.
And Hanover used it as a springboard to launch the Town Manager Act.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to show the efficiencies and how it could work well, you know, when they used that as sort of the first steps to get the Town Manager Act approved.
Right, and I think that our local government study committee also saw that.
Yeah.
Because they've been looking at that model now for some time now. And they saw that as maybe a springboard to that.
Correct.
To that form of government, so.
Yeah.
All right, so then what happened was that, you know, we had the local government study committee in place. The selectmen placed it as an article,
Yep.
Article 11, at the
Remember.
annual town meeting.
Yep.
And we did our dress rehearsal for who was going to do all the talking, and basically our experience that evening at town meeting went as well as could be expected.
Absolutely.
Virtually unanimous.
Yeah.
Virtually unanimous.
And very
There was
little opposition,
very little
other than a
opposition.
few board members, which you would expect.
Right, and
Yeah.
I think that we wanted to make sure that, you know, we approached, you know, the planning board
Right.
and said, you know, if you want to join, you know, you want to be part of this, fine. And they said, well, let's, you know, we'll sit back for a little bit and you
Right.
know, we'll see how it works, and we, you know, may opt in at a later date. So.
And that's a crucial component. That's something we should talk about, because Pembroke needs a town planner, and they have for a long time.
Right.
We're losing a lot of, I know, whether it's economic development or just looking at what's left for developable land in town and everything else, we really need a town planner in place. And I think, you know, that's one of the key components in this DMI that, you know, we at some point will look to incorporate in.
So that leads me to my next question. So what were some of the advantages? I know Lisa alluded to just briefly earlier. What are the advantages of having this Department of Municipal Inspections, as we call it? Tony?
It's communication, cross-training, office coverage, having everybody understand what everybody else's department does and can jump in at any given time. It takes time to get there. And then the one-stop shopping for the residents and the business owners. I mean, they come in and they're not pointed in 6 different directions. They come in and there's one person that says, oh, you need to go to the Board of Health, they're right here. Or you need conservation sign-off, it's right here. And let me tell you the next step in the process. And it really streamlines everything and just creates so many efficiencies that we didn't have before.
Right. Lisa?
Yeah, the ones that you don't even see, and the simplest thing I can say is when we put our two departments side by side, if a resident walks into either the Board of Health or the building department, where we are now situated exactly side by side, and starts to explain, I'm looking at parcel X, I want to do X, Y, Z. Instead of having to explain, this particular citizen having to explain it 17 times, Michelle Dowling was right there, Tracy was right there, and they called, they said, Lisa, can you come in here for a second? Instead of this resident being forced to go through the same explanation and question scenario 3, 4, 5 times, they were able to go through it once, and we were each able to say, this is your zoning concern with this parcel, this is your building concern, and this is your Board of Health concern. This saved the resident, God only knows how much time, a considerable amount. But not only that, the 3 of us were able to immediately point out and be on the same page immediately with a piece of property, which never occurred before.
So we got, the concept is there, the advantages are there and all that. And so town meeting votes on May the 9th, 2017. The article takes effect July the 1st. What are the first steps that we take to start the ball rolling? What were some of the first steps that we took?
Well, all of us sat down in a meeting and we talked about some of the inter-office stuff and payroll and things like that, which was sort of easy to figure out. But one of the biggest things was laying out the offices better.
Yep.
Right.
And, you know, Lisa and I had been talking about that leading up to it,
For-
so we already had
for
a
a
plan in
while.
our head.
I'm not
of
saying
how
we
that
put the
was-
cart before the horse, but we had a plan.
Exactly, we had a plan in place. So we opened up in between the 2 offices where the planning board used to be. We did a small remodel in there, which came out great, by the way. Nice job. I know you had some hands in that. And they opened up, the planning office went upstairs into the old Board of Health office. Health came down, and now we have an opening between the, just a cased opening between the 2
Yeah,
offices.
that was a real key to, you know, to let the planning board, you know, okay, I control what goes on at town hall and all that,
Right.
but I think we made them part of the plan and said,
Yeah.
Yes.
here's what we want to do. You know, we want to move you guys up to the Board of Health office. It's
Yeah.
going to give you more rooms so that you can have a better meeting place,
Right.
you know, for your meetings.
Yep.
And then we bring the Board of Health down. And then, of course, the key was to knocking out the walls where that mailroom was.
Right.
Yes.
To increase the size of
So you could
the
accommodate
new
the
Board of
filing,
Health.
the filing
Yeah.
cabinets, yes.
So then we created that office, and then we punched a hole between the new Board of Health office and the existing building department.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we moved the Conservation Commission, who had been shuffled around Town Hall the last several years,
Right.
from that mailroom area over to the building department. We moved a couple of desks around,
Yep.
and there we are.
There we
you
are.
know, we got everything lined up
Yeah.
now, and we go from there. What are some of the early drawbacks that we have right now? You know, when we finally got everybody moved downstairs, and besides, and the entire renovation was done within a week, 10
Yeah.
days.
Yeah,
Less
they
than
did a
10
great
days.
job.
Incredible
Yeah.
amount
Yeah.
of work that was done. A lot of work was done at night and on weekends by the
Yeah.
custodial staff, and you couldn't have gotten it any smoother than it went. I
Oh,
mean,
absolutely. It
just
went
was-
great.
It went
I saw a
really,
few weeks
really
ago
well,
the ceiling's
so-
back up. It looks great.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
So what are some of the early drawbacks that we've had to just go through, growing pains with the department itself?
There hasn't been a lot of drawbacks. I can't speak for the building department. There has not been a lot of drawbacks from us. The biggest thing is just reorganizing our office in a new space, which is going to happen anytime you move a department. For me personally, the only thing is I have a lot crappier cell phone coverage down in the basement, and since all the contractors use my cell phone, that is the biggest inconvenience,
Yeah,
is
we
that the
don't get my
coverage
cell
down there
phone,
is a problem. So we're going to have to look at
Need
a
a
booster or
booster,
anything else,
yeah.
because they have to be able to get a hold of me, and that's just.
I think one of the other things is scheduling.
Yeah.
You know, getting Sheila in the Board of Health, and Rachel in the Conservation
Yeah.
Commission, and Tracy,
Yeah.
and Michelle.
One thing I do in Hanover that works really well, and we do here, is a joint vacation calendar. You know, when people request time off, you know, we have a vacation calendar, and we tell them, go check, make sure nobody else is off. And if they are, then if we have to have 2 people out, we can look to get office coverage and make that happen. The other, not problem or setback, is more about just cross-training the staff. That takes time.
And that was
That-
my
that
next
takes
question
time,
about
yeah.
And, you know,
cross-training
getting them upstairs,
everybody.
because Tracy's sitting there, but, you know, she may not know where exactly everything is in the health
Right.
office and how to find it. So if she is covering and, you know, wants to answer a health question, that's just gonna take time and get everybody up to
Absolutely.
speed. And the same with, you know, the health office covering
Yeah.
for building.
Now, speaking of cross-training, you know, we've talked a lot about, you look down in those offices, and we have a million filing cabinets.
Yeah,
I mean, when we lined up those filing cabinets in the new Board of Health office,
Yeah.
it was
It's a
amazing.
mile of filing
It was
cabinets.
amazing
Yeah.
that it was as many as that there
be
are.
thankful it's on the basement level now.
Yeah, right? Exactly. All joking
Yeah.
aside.
So what can we do going forward to eliminate it or consolidate those
A
records
long-range
or what?
plan, a long-range plan, my
Digitize.
dream is to digitize it all.
Yeah.
Whether or not we will get to the point where we're fully digitized, I tend to doubt. It's going to be cost prohibitive in the near future without a town meeting article to support it. But in the preliminary future, once everyone's used to the new layout, we can begin to merge a filing system. And instead of having 32 property files in all different areas, we will have a singular set of property files in the town. And they will have the Board of Health records, and they will have the building records, and they will have the zoning decisions, and they will have the conservation decisions. And instead of trying to go to 4 different filing cabinets to find out the information on wetlands and zoning and everything else on a parcel, there will be a single file for it. That would be my dream, if we must stay with paper files, to at least consolidate that. And in doing that, that's going to take a little time with the staff. It's going to take a little overtime and a little elbow grease. But I've already begun this at the Board of Health, and try to purge out as much old and
that's the biggest,
outdated information. And that's going to have to be done in the building department too. And again, that's just going to take time. But just merging Board of Health and building, all the extra copies of septic plans that are currently on file at the building department can then all be purged, because you only need a singular
have
set.
a
So
lot of
let's say
duplication.
Ed Thorne lives at 200 Main Street. You're going to have my file in the building department, the Conservation Commission, and in
Yep.
the Board of Health?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
The
currently
same-
how it
the
is.
same kind of information or a little bit of?
Yeah.
Slightly different
Specific to
information.
conservation, health, and whatnot, but yeah, it's a lot of duplication and a lot of repeating the same stuff. And she talks about digitizing, and that's a great idea, and that's something that can be done relatively easily. If you set it up on your server or on the cloud or wherever we choose to do it, every home will have a file. And then inside that file can be, sub-files, building, health, conservation, and we just need to scan the documents in. And that's something we can utilize senior work-offs for. I mean, there's all sorts of ways to
Sure.
get that done once the procedure and the process is set up. Here's the big scanner, here's how we do it. Take this, here's, building, conservation, and building for these 10 addresses, just get them scanned today. And you can just crank away at it, and as they digitize, then we can just take them and either move them off-site or purge them.
So you would do probably 10 or 11 properties, whether it's alphabetical or by
whatever,
street
yeah.
or whatever?
A day, yeah.
And you would consolidate them
That would be the
piecemeal,
idea.
piecemeal.
Consolidate them first, purge what you don't need, and then take that and scan it in. And then figure out a way, there's all sorts of document retrieval programs out there, figure out the best way for the residents to then access that information from the outside in, using the internet and whatnot.
And we've already started it. Again, another module will need to be purchased, but we've already started it with the GIS that's already
Right.
being used in our assessing department. And it could be as simple as investing in additional overlays and then investing in what they call the web platform or the public platform, and then the public
Yeah.
could have access to that.
Right.
Again, not entirely cheap. I mean, these modules do cost a significant amount, but it would be one way to move to a platform that would be fully accessible across town hall.
Do we have models like that in communities maybe that
Yes.
you're?
Yeah.
There's a lot of
so-
communities using
yeah.
People GIS to its full capacity.
People GIS to full capacity, and/or the project that we use in Hanover View Permit has it's another software you and I spoke about, that may be something we can integrate that has an online access that allows people to retrieve those documents and pull their own reports and everything else.
So pulling their own reports, you mean that somebody come up like you can at the assessor's office?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Go to the screen and actually bring up,
But they could even do it from home. Someone
They
could
can do it from
literally
home. They could log in
their
and
own
pull
septic
an
as-built
address
from
and
their
see,
house.
right, see all the documents that are attached to a property and see all the permits that have been pulled, which will cut down on visits to the town hall and, staff time that'll need to be answering questions, because people like realtors and things like that can retrieve all this data online,
okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we got the documentation, we got record keeping, we have scheduling. Anything else you think that should be a goal of that department?
We need to catch up with them with
yeah.
online permitting and
Online.
online permit printing.
Yeah, online
have
that,
to
and
move to
also scheduling inspections for the inspectors. That's a big deal, not only health, but building related. We can schedule the inspections online. People can actually go in, click on their permit, whether it's electrical, building, or plumbing, once we get the software in place, and can request an inspection. Once they request that inspection, then it goes right to the tablets that we'll get for the inspectors.
Right.
So that's a
Yeah.
goal that we should have. Some of the inspectors already have tablets, but the ones that don't, then you can use the online permitting, so they'll have live access to what we
Yes.
have in the office. So they'll be able to see the permits, see who the electrician or the plumber or the contractor is, pull it up and be able to do that inspection and log it right real time in the field. And have complete, so they won't be calling back and finding out if it was done. You'll know it's done.
So by inspectors, we're talking about the 3 building inspectors.
Yep.
Wiring,
gas,
plumbing,
Electric,
myself.
health.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah. So I mean, it's seamless when you do that, because then it's not, no phone calls to the office to try to set up, Nick Cicello to go out to do an inspection. They can click online, it'll go right to a tablet that the electrical inspector will have, and he'll have it all in a schedule for the day.
All right. Let's see now, do we have anything else that we have planned for the department? Any additional goals like I asked before? I mean, anything else we want to?
Absolutely. I can't speak for Tony, but right now, going into this fall, we're as busy this fall in the Board of Health as I've been any other spring. Now, obviously, building booms come and go, but my goal for the Board of Health for the town of Pembroke would be to get at least another part-time inspector and or a part-time inspector that could be shared amongst the other departments
Yeah.
and begin to train them, because there just, in my mind, is not enough redundancy there, that when I am not there, there's too much of a halt of work. Tony and our other inspectors do an awesome job trying to fill in, but there's only so much you can do. We're reaching that tipping point where to start cross-training another clerical and inspector staff, I think is almost going to be a necessity within the next year to two.
Well, I think you're heading towards like you talk about maybe an assistant health agent
Yeah.
or something like that, even on a part-time basis. Just
Sure.
somebody that can go out and do food
Yep.
inspections and Title V inspections. Bring that person in so you have Not only that, but just, having succession planning, I mean, God forbid Lisa gets, something
Sure.
happens and you want to have
Absolutely.
somebody
Yep.
else that can step up and do the job.
And I'd
So,
love to even look internally. There is some internal interest if someone's interested in taking on additional workload and finding, even if it is a small amount of hours, as Tony alluded to, and start training the staff. And that will provide a continuity to the town of the same people they've already been dealing with, the same names and faces they already know.
I think we're seeing that even in my office where, we have taken, on some extra duties.
Right.
And I think we're seeing that with Casey and,
Yes.
and Sabrina
Yeah.
in our office,
Right.
where
Yeah.
we're
Taking
really
on
good.
more, doing more. Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I think that, we're giving and the Department of Municipal Inspections has given the town the best bang for their buck in that. So I think.
Absolutely.
So going forward financially, do we anticipate something that, the warrant for this fall town meeting is closed, and I don't know if any department has submitted any additional
We have not.
We
financial
haven't, yeah.
requests.
I think
So
it's
we
too
might
soon,
wanna
in my
look at
opinion.
For the
maybe
spring.
the spring.
Yeah.
I think the spring would be.
I'm
the
working
next.
on getting an invoice, an estimate for the view permit software, so we can talk about that to see what that module would cost, and then we could incorporate that, because we have both. We have view permit and People's GIS in Hanover, and so, having some similarities there would be certainly easier for the inspectors.
Did Hanover become a community compact?
Yes, we did, and I forget when,
I
but
wonder
we
if
did.
there's some funds available for, that kind of interfacing between departments. I know
Without
that-
a doubt.
I know that town accountant Mike Buckley and I are looking at the possibility of him getting a new software package to combine our town accountant's office with the school department.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
They've been separate for years. They've been running dual systems.
Right.
But it's getting to the point where the shelf life of that
Yep.
program is coming to an end, and
Certainly.
they're looking at that. So I think that probably be something that we should be looking at, for the Springtown meeting.
Sure.
Put
More than
together
likely,
a financial game plan for the DMI.
Yes.
Without a doubt.
I
And I
think
think
that-
long-term, we talk about it and we all hint around it, nobody really wants to pull the trigger, but, and it's gonna have to happen, is, regionalization. I mean, we know we can run 2 or 3
Right.
town, DMIs.
Well, the state's
as one.
already sending it our way. There's no
Yeah.
doubt. And when you look at emergency preparedness or any of the other state directives by DPH, the state is going to push, whether towns like it or not, regionalization. And I happen to agree with Tony very much on this, that there's no reason why you could not have a regional office and provide. For example, we could merge Hanover and Pembroke quite easily
Right now,
with
yeah.
a lot of continuity of staff, and then when one person's missing, it would be virtually seamless to say the residents of Hanover and Pembroke. We could easily reach out and start to incorporate Halifax, Hanson, other communities if
Yeah.
they were interested in. Obviously, there's a capacity limit there by geography. I personally don't agree with the state when they want to go county-wide, because you're then talking, you could have an hour-long transition from the top of one county to another, but I think a 5 or 6 town region would not be
without a doubt.
inconceivable from the
Yeah.
health side and
Right.
building side, and the characters of the town should be relatively similar just for sake of continuity, zoning wise and other. But I think that's more than likely where we'll probably see things moving in the next 10 years. I'd be
without a
surprised
doubt.
if we don't.
Yeah, we have to. It's just not, this form isn't sustainable. I mean, at what point are people gonna push back? Is the number $20, per thousand on your tax rate? I mean, who knows? But you
Right.
can't just keep going up 2.5%, and people eventually are gonna hit a ceiling. So we have to, look for ways to save money
streamline
and
it.
make this sustainable.
Right, and the fact that our community is faced with some serious building projects.
Correct.
From public safety to public works to
Yep.
recreation. So that's going to be something that's really going to be faced by
Sure.
our community, and especially in the spring of 2018. So,
Yeah.
well, Lisa and Tony, I really appreciated your input in creating the Department of Municipal Inspections.
Yeah.
And we've been working on it for a good year, and I know you mentioned earlier that you guys have had it in the back of your minds for.
We've been kicking this
So-
around
Well,
for
we've been sort of doing our own,
yeah,
Right.
our own
local
cross sharing,
regionalization
but-
for a while, but yeah.
Well, the
It's a
timing
necessity.
was right.
The timing
and-
was good.
And the fact
Yeah.
that we were able to put that all together and of course, physically move everybody with
Yeah.
a minimal of.
Amount of disruption.
disruption is right. It was a great situation. So
I think
and
so.
I appreciate the efforts that you both have made, and along with the other members of the departments that have been consolidated.
It was a
So-
true team effort, I will say.
It really was.
Everybody.
From Tracy, Sheila, everyone's just really put forth the top amount of effort and the top amount of tolerance too. I mean, this was a disruption to people's lives. There was a disruption in workspace and everything else, and everyone worked together to resolve it rather than complain, rather than be upset. Everyone worked together to resolve it. And so
Right.
hats off to them.
All right, so we're looking forward to, a great fiscal year in
Hopefully.
2018, and we're
Yep.
really providing what we think is a great service for our residents and being very efficient at the same time. So,
Yeah.
That's
The
the goal.
future
Thank
is
you very
bright.
much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having us.
Well, folks, that concludes our episode regarding our new Department of Municipal Inspections. We hope you enjoyed that insight into how the department was created and where we're going from there. So we appreciate it very much, and take care.